Tuolumne Wild and Scenic River Hearings, U.S. House of Representatives, Interior Subcommittee, May 3rd and 4th, 1984.
I want to make sure I understand the Department of Interior's position here very clearly. In the late 1970s, the department studied this river thoroughly and came out with a recommendation that it be included in the Wild and Scenic River system. Now, so far as I know, none of the characteristics of the river have changed since 1979. And nothing that was encompassed within that study is in any way different. Does the Department of Interior now reject the findings of that study?
No, sir. I think what is different is the Congress didn't act during a 3-year period when it could have. In the meantime, a permit was granted as appropriate, and we feel that process, while at the same time standing behind our recommendation of earlier, the process should continue. The times have changed, economic situations have changed, knowledge has changed, and we'd like to have the benefit, as I'm sure you would, of additional information.
Okay, since FERC has not rejected a hydroelectric project for environmental reasons since 1953, do you believe that that agency would give equal weight to values other than hydroelectric benefits?
I can't speak to how the FERC handles its business. I can only suggest that in our involvement at the department in this process on this river, we have been optimistic and assured of the participation that is needed by all parties, those that would be for hydropower and those that would be against it, and I think that's what we want to support, to see what the findings are. I can't determine where FERC will come out.
Would you support a final evaluation of this project on the Tuolumne by another government agency than FERC?
I think that members of Congress would have to make that determination, having created the independent agency itself.
Okay, about these studies you advocate going forward, would you characterize those studies as independent and objective, even though they will be conducted by the primary beneficiaries of the dam?
I would hope they would be, in the sense that there is full public participation throughout the studies. So in that sense, there is a, I don't know if you want to call it independence, but there's certainly full public review of the studies, and I understand the studies are available on a 6-month basis during this period. So everybody's working with the districts. And
see, what I'm concerned about is what I hear the department saying is we're not going to make the final decision on this river now. We're not advocating you go forward with wild and scenic status. Let's let the studies that FERC has authorized to be conducted by the people who want to build the project go forward, and then let FERC, who has not in 30 years rejected a project on environmental grounds, make their decision, which of course will be based upon the hydroelectric benefits.
Thank you. Mr. Lagomarsino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, I want to welcome you here too. We're pleased to have you. I guess what you have said is that you have not changed your mind, you, the department, have not changed your mind about your previous recommendation, but you might, depending on what the study shows. Is that a correct analysis of your position?
I guess I can only say never.
Congress, we have to realize as we study things to death, as you well know, and we do studies upon studies upon studies, and then when it gets up here, if it doesn't agree with what we believe, we don't follow it anyway, if I may be very blunt about it. The Colorado River has probably been studied over 100 times. The Great Salt Lake in Utah has been studied 113 times, and they're studying it again. And when they complete that study, the Salt Lake will probably be underwater.
And I'm very concerned, but grateful that the two of you are meeting, and I understand I'm getting reports that you are meeting and you are progressing. Could I ask that question? How much progress has there been made? Senator Wilson.
Congresswoman Burton, I think that Senator Cranston and I have made substantial progress.
I'm
We're
pleased to
practically
hear
going
that.
steady.
You're going steady.
Spent the whole morning with him.
Do you need a third person to help? to marry you, in other words? To
Let's not
perform
carry
the
the metaphor
marriage?
too far.
Your position that the Tuolumne should be developed further for hydropower and irrigation?
Well, it would be with the Federal Regulatory Commission, Energy Commission, unless Congress takes action to withdraw that authority to make the decision in the future. And I might say that the Forest Service would be
Shouldn't it be the other way around? That it be
with the Congress. Federal Energy Commission could make its recommendations, but the Congress should have the final decision. Because this is not just an energy decision, it's an environmental decision. The FERC isn't even good at making energy decisions, much less environmental decisions.
Well, I won't comment on that, but
Then, for the record, has the Forest Service officially changed its policy since its 1979 recommendation for wild and scenic river status for the Tuolumne River?
our position is that we haven't changed our mind on the Tuolumne River, but we do believe that we should wait to see the results of these studies that are underway and make a decision in light of that new information, which could change our position.
So you no longer favor wild and scenic status for the Tuolumne River?
Not at this time.
And that is a reversal of the Forest Service policy since 1979, am I correct?
I would describe it that we're now want to look at the new information and the studies that are being done and have the option to change that position as a result of those studies.
Well, I'm just saying that when the Forest Service testified on previous hearings in Congress, before I was a member, on the Tuolumne River, they were not asking for further studies. So you have changed your position since recommending wild and scenic status and advocating it. Is that not correct?
Essentially.
At that point, did you change your position prior to or after the Ponderosa project was put forth?
Well, our position, first of all, I don't describe it as a change in position. I describe it as let's look and see what happens and comes out of the studies and reserve the right to change our position.
I hear you saying you're changing your position, but you don't want to call it a change in position.
Coelho?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I understand, Mr. Robertson, what you're saying is that the department and the administration still supports the position that they've maintained, and that in the next 2 years the river will not change, nothing will happen to the river, and at the end of that 2-year period, then you would evaluate if there needs to be a change in position. There is no change today, and don't anticipate one unless the studies that come forth show that there should be a change, and the burden of responsibility is upon those who want to have a project as opposed to anybody else.
Will the gentleman yield?
Well, I'd like to get my answer first.
Yes, you describe that as the way I see it.
Okay.
I want to clarify this point because I'm hearing it different ways. 2 years ago, the Forest Service advocated wild and scenic status and supported legislation to accomplish that. Is that not correct?
Well, it was
And today-
1979, so...
Okay, and today you're not doing that, but you're not calling that a change in position.
Mr. Amadeo, in the, it doesn't state that it came from you, however, the cover does say that it came from the trust, so I assume this chart is from you. You say that under the Ponderosa project that fishing streams would be dewatered. Is that true? That's not what I have been told, and I'm confused based on what you say in this brochure that you're sending out to everybody and what I have been told. I'm not a proponent of Ponderosa, but I am willing to let them develop their case, but they have told me they do not dewater. As a matter of fact, they tell me that if you dewatered, that you would not have, you would kill the fish, and consequently FERC nor anybody else would go along that. I might just state for the record, I'm not an admirer of FERC and have fought them on practically everything. But it does not dewater based on what I am told, and as a matter of fact that that during August and September that you would get more water than even before the Hetch Hetchy project. So there seems to be some confusion or conflict, but maybe what you did was just to simplify the issue without explaining it here, and we have that currently with some people in office, and I hope you wouldn't be guilty of that.
I don't believe we are, although there is some difficulty with the word dewatering. Some people have questioned whether it is in fact a word in the dictionary.
I'm not worried about that. Dewatered implies to me, and I assume to you, means no water.
No.
Okay,
No,
then
it
let's
does not
understand what it
does
says.
not leave it bone dry. What we're talking about are diversions that, in terms of the main stem, let me walk you through on that map if I may.
Don't walk me too long. I don't have that long.
Okay, that's fine.
Just be very careful.
I will be very...
Do you really mean to say that it dewaters?
I mean to say that it removes from the river the substantial amount of the water now there that sustains the trout fishery, and the amount of water being diverted would very severely reduce the trout population and make it a remnant of what it is now.
The people from Ponderosa disagree, but we'll let them explain that later. But I just think that we ought to question that.
I don't want to cut the gentleman off, but we're running into a vote, so...
Okay, I will be. Just one more point after that. I just want to clear the record on that, so that you're in effect saying that you trust San Francisco. I'm not sure that Sierra Club has ever trusted San Francisco in the past. I find it rather intriguing that you're saying that you do.
I've not
trusted. You trust San Francisco to go ahead and deal kindly with the river on the 150 additional million
We're
gallons.
not leaving it to the discretion of San Francisco.
So
We're
you're
putting our
saying we
faith
should...
in the Wild and Scenic Act and the criteria that it establishes in terms of further development.
So you're saying that we should maybe make the record clear, which I will be glad to do, to make the record clear that this is your understanding, this is what should be done. I will probably do it anyway. So let me go one step further. You say, and several other people have said here, that Turlock and Modesto are the applicants and the beneficiaries of the Ponderosa project. I would assume, Mr. Amadeo, you would admit that San Francisco is also part of that application, and that they would be a beneficiary if the project was developed. Is that not true?
San Francisco's name is on the preliminary permit. San Francisco, by unanimous vote of the Board of Supervisors, has declined to participate in the study or sink any money in.
Let me ask my question again, Mr. Amadeo. The chairman has said that we need to rush it along. So answer my question. If the project is built, Ponderosa is built, who would be the beneficiaries? Turlock and Modesto, you've already stated. Would not San Francisco be the beneficiary if the project is built? Answer the question.
Not according to the Board of Supervisors.
So you're in effect saying that as far as, we'll clear it up later, but you're in effect saying that as far as you know, that San Francisco has withdrawn...
No.
Well, then
Okay.
I don't understand.
San Francisco is still entitled at the time... If this proceeds to a licensing stage, San Francisco retains its legal entitlement to join in the project.
So you're saying that you're answering my question by
option.
saying that if the project is built and completed, that San Francisco has its entitlement to get the power and water from that project. So they have not declined, as far as you know, they have not declined the right to the benefits of that project.
The gentleman has long since expired, and I'm going to cut him off because I want to wind up with this panel before we go over to vote.
I think what I would like to try to convey to you folks is the personal aspect that I get from that river. When I step into that river, my blood pressure drops. There aren't any telephones out there, and I don't have to worry about schedules and making my next appointment. And I have had a personal history that goes back about 3 generations with the Tuolumne River. When I was a kid, my brother and I were...
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Coelho?
I was intrigued with his comment just now. He's a fisherman, and from what you say, a good fisherman, and he has a trout at the end of the line and his blood pressure drops. I've never known a fisherman that didn't get a little bit of high blood pressure when that trout was at the end of the line.
That's true.
I just thought the record ought to be clear on that. I don't... He's a good witness, and I know him well, I know him too well. His blood pressure's got to come up just a bit.
Mr. Coelho, you're right. All fishermen lie.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. The chair would caution the witness not to let Congressman Coelho rattle him or use all of his time.
No, that's...
Mr. Chairman, I would only add a caveat to my colleague's statement. What if the fish gets off the end of the line?
Then my blood pressure goes up. That's true.
Thank you.
Fishing right now, the Tuolumne River is one of the finest wilderness fishing rivers in California, possibly the entire United States. It is, I have taken fish out of there in excess of 24 inches. I've got proof, I've got a videotape, and you're all invited to see it. I really do. 20, well, maybe 20. Anyway, really, just monster trout. Yes, sir, that's right. It was a very large fish. Let's try that. And there are massive numbers of fish down there too. And I would hate to see, and I know Mr. Coelho raised the issue of dewatering, and I suspect that dewatering is very much like the blood in your bloodstream. If you take out 60% of it, you're going to die. Yes, there's 40% left, but you're still dead. And that's what happens to fisheries. You take 60% of the water out of a river, and the fishery will die. You'll have little dinky hatchery trout left in the river because they dump them in every week with a hatchery truck. But that's different, and it's an entirely different experience. And I think that what we have, and the main question here, is not whether it's Clavey Ward's Ferry or Ponderosa or Son of Ponderosa, but what we have here is a question that, is the Tuolumne a priceless national treasure, or is it not? And
Mr. Moyer, in your statement in several places, because I understand that you don't believe in restricting anything, and you like to, as a fisherman, you like to have freedom to exaggerate. I didn't say that. Freedom to make your point. You said that there was 90% less flow as a result of the Ponderosa. Did I hear you correctly?
in one stretch, yes, sir.
And that as a result of that, you would bring down the fishing that much. That's not, I've never heard that figure before. I was rather intrigued with that, and I assume other witnesses will be able to address that as we move along. But are you accurate on your figure here, or is this the fisherman talking?
No, sir, this is accurate. I think it's interesting. You may have seen the charts produced by the irrigation districts. When I first saw those charts, I was amazed. I looked at the graphs that indicated that the fishing was going to get better, and I saw these graphs, and I said, whoa, what's going on here? And I said, I mean, this runs contrary not only to common sense, but angler sense, too. And what I found out was that they weren't talking about fishing improving. They were talking about fishability improving, which is a little bit of a semantic game there. And what
is a semantic game?
Well, fishability is different than fishing. Fishability means, for example, if the water's chest deep and I can't get way out there in the middle of the river to fish it, it's not very fishable. And so when you drop 90% of the water out of the river, you can get out there and fish it, even though there may not be any fish there. So the fishability may be better, but the fishing isn't worth a hang. And that's the problem here.
Okay. I understand, again, and maybe my figures are not correct, but that we currently plant 13,000 pounds of fish every year. Now, is that correct, or is there something wrong with that, too?
I really couldn't tell you about the planted fish. That's not my main area of interest, and I don't know how many thousand pounds of fish they
Well,
plant.
do you catch planted fish or live fish, and tell me how you know the difference?
Quite truthfully, in two ways. One is I enjoy wilderness fishing where, you know, the
Let's
canyons...
talk about the Tuolumne. I enjoy wilderness fishing, too, but let's talk about the Tuolumne.
Last weekend, I was down in the bottom of the Cherry Canyon, which is 2,000 feet deep. And airplanes can't fly down into that canyon because it's too narrow, and hatchery trucks can't get there, so there aren't any hatchery fish there. I know that. Secondly, if I happen to be in an area in which it's possible to have planted trout, there are physical differences by which you can distinguish hatchery trout from wild trout. I can go into them if you want me to.
Don't get too descriptive here, because this is not... no, go
it's
ahead.
not boy trout and girl trout. This is hatchery trout and wild trout.
Hatchery trout, okay. Can you just tell us what is...
Yes, basically, there are about three immediately distinguishing characteristics. One is when you pick a fish up and you're about ready to release it back into the stream, which I advocate, the scales of a hatchery trout will usually come off in your hand. Secondly, they're all kind of a uniform battleship gray, hence the name GI trout. And thirdly, they have sort of their physical characteristics are different in that the shape is blunter. They are raised in tanks in which the race of the water is less, there's less velocity. They're not as streamlined as wild trout. It's really quite simple once you get the hang of it to tell a wild trout from a hatchery trout.
On that point, do they taste the same?
No, sir, they do not.
After you taste them,
it's immoral to eat them.
I'm not sure you can distinguish the difference at that point. It's too late, some people might say. I'm interested in your statement where you say that this camp is operated for 62 years. And you say that it's been used by 150,000 campers. Now, I know that I'm just a Portuguese and my math may not be too good, but that tells me that there are probably 141 campers per year who use the facility. Now, I was born and raised in that area, and I've gone to camps in practically every part of the basin there, and we probably had camps that had 140 people per day as opposed to 140 per year. And I'm kind of intrigued with a camp that limits to 141 people a year. I'm just kind of interested in what type of people go to your camp, who do you restrict it to, what are the requirements to get in, and so forth.
Congressman, my brother-in-law is Portuguese too. He met
has the same problem I do, probably, huh?
He's got a problem. He met my sister at the Berkeley Tuolumne camp. He married her.
He was one of those 141. I don't know many exclusive Portuguese, but he must have been one.
One of the lucky ones.
Yeah.
Ponderosa is better than Clavey Ward's Ferry because the ground disturbance is much less. We have preliminary indications that we do not appear to have what I call critical factors present in the canyon. The pinch points are, we have not yet determined any locations where there are either organisms or archaeological features that would preclude further action in the canyon.
After we complete the studies, and assuming at the completion of the studies we file for a license, if we don't, then it's a sort of meaningless point. We do file for a license. The FERC is then going to do their own environmental impact studies and set a schedule for a hearing on the license. The two would run simultaneously.
I've taken a lot of time, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say, and I know Congressman Queller may have a couple other comments here, and I might too, that if, as my colleague suggests, you have a PR problem, it's certainly not because you haven't spent enough money on public relations. If you've been defeated or on the short end here, I think you have spent quite a bit more resources than the people on the other side who are trying to protect the river.
I wish I could believe that, Congressman, that it seems like the material I get in the mail and from the other side always greater volume and quality than ours.
Well, maybe you should talk to your PR firm.
How much is a Richard Chamberlain worth, sir?
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to get one question answered for the record after this half-hour dialogue that's gone here, but just one question for the record. In the Tuolumne River Preservation Trust material that they provided yesterday stated that the Modesto and Turlock irrigation districts pay the third lowest electrical rates in the entire nation. As one who represents that area, I find that rather intriguing and nice if it were true. I'd like to know if it is true, and if it isn't true, how would a trust that is so well respected and so involved with so many different activities get misled to be able to present such misleading facts?
So where our rates right now may be half of PG&E's, in a year and a half, that is not going to be the case, and our rates, I would say, are very easily going to double and triple within the next 2 to 3 year span. When this project comes online, we're going to be way up there and hopefully still cheaper than PG&E, and otherwise we don't keep it as a public power system.
Well, the short answer to my question basically is that the information in the pamphlet is not true.
True. That's correct. It's a perception by a PR firm.
So if my colleagues and others are reading that pamphlet, they should digest it from a PR firm, but not it for a factual basis. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.